Hello, digital educator. Today, I want to talk to you about a supremely important topic. It's a topic that we shouldn't be putting off any longer. The topic is accessibility. So if I were to go back to being a building admin, if I was to be back working every day with students, this would probably be the first item that I would want to tackle as a building admin. The equity issues of accessibility for individuals with diverse learning needs, of ways that we can best support them, about why we can give accessibility. And so first, let's define what accessibility means. I would define accessibility as using supports, technology, and curriculum planning to remove barriers for students with diverse needs. It's not about creating custom paths all the time for individuals with diverse needs, but making sure that students have access, can utilize the same curriculum that everyone else is using inside of the classroom through intentional design, through being very, very intentional about the way that we set up our items and the technology that we give kids in order to make sure that all learners have access to the materials. So such needs could be that they're hard of vision, hard of hearing. They could be English language learners. They could have a reading disability, physical impairments, color blindness, or any other number of impediments. And so in this video, I want to present 3 cases for making accessibility through assistive tech and universal design for learning something that we should have embedded in our instructional culture. It should become who we are. It's how we do business. And we should never negotiate or settle for anything less than accessibility for our diverse learners. So my first case here is the moral case. And really this one should hit home the most about our moral obligation to individuals with disabilities. So I love analogies. I'm going to present this through an analogy. Imagine that you're in a third period class. It's your third period class, and there's a student that's in a wheelchair. Maybe it's like what my high school was like, or my elementary school, which was an ancient elementary school. And there's no elevator for a student to get up into their math class that's in third period. They don't have access. If we saw that, it would be disheartening. It would be difficult for us to accept the fact that we have a kid that needs to get to class but can't get to class because of wheelchair bound. Or even worse, imagine it was a fire exit. We're inside of a school and there's no way for an individual that has a physical disability that's in a wheelchair to be able to get out if the building were to be on fire. These things would astound us. They would shock our moral core. But when it's a disability that can't necessarily be witnessed and seen, we don't as easily empathize with the need of that individual. And there are lots of different disabilities that present themselves in physical manner or in visible manner, and a lot that don't present themselves in a physical manifestation of the disabilities. And these are the ones that we have a hard time latching on to the fact that we need to do something about it. Those 2 presented issues, if there was the math class in third period on the second floor with no elevator, would we do something about that? Or how about the fire exit issue? If there's no way for the student to get out of the school when the school's on fire, but the front door, would we do something about that? Rhetorically, yes, I almost think that we would be positively inclined to act upon those things. So we really need to start having this dialogue concerning the rights of those individuals with disabilities. And we need to grapple with the internal conflict. We grapple with the conflict of knowing that, yes, it will take work that is very worthwhile, work that is going to impact lives and make lives better. But at the same time, work that is different, doing things a little bit different than we're used to have been doing, the way that we've done things. But to know that in the end, doing something different is going to make someone's lives better. Knowing that doing something different is going to give someone more access, more ability to be successful than what they had before. Second case is the academic case. So I'm going to point to this graphic right up in here. This comes from the North Carolina Education Department, and it has to talk about reading. And so while we're not all reading teachers, I think that reading is a microcosm of a larger issue, and it reflects the students' ability to gain information. So what this graphic organizer here says, or this chart, I should say, 95% of all students are able to read, to learn how to read. Yes, there are 5% of students that are severely disabled and may not be able to read ever. But 95% will be able to. Of that 95%, 30% could learn how to read no matter how you taught them. They're going to learn in spite of you. We have 50% that are very much dependent upon the curriculum of how we're going to present that curriculum and what the curriculum is about whether or not they'll be able to learn how to read. And then we have 15% that need intensive interventions in order to learn how to read. Now, for quite a while now, No Child Left Behind, George Bush, 2001, 2, 3, 4, I forget what year that was. Ever since then, there's been an increased emphasis upon academic outcomes and performance. And what better way is there for us to be able to increase our academic outcome than through providing accessibility to our students that need it the most, those individuals with disabilities? If we want to shift our achievement, we need to target subpopulations, and we need to grow those subpopulations in their achievement. And one of those such subpopulations is students with disabilities, students that have needs, students that have diverse learning needs, even more than just disabilities, because it's possible to need accessibility and assistive tech without having a disability. So if we want to shift towards that high end of students that are passing Regents exams, towards students that are doing well on their fourth grade assessments, or just whether it's your final, your midterm, your unit test, those are the students to start looking towards if you want to move things over by removing those barriers and just making things so that they can express the learning that they have and receive their learning in a better manner. So, the number one way, if you want to increase student outcomes, and the easiest way for us to increase student outcomes is to make our materials digital for our learning materials. Give students access, because once we make our learning materials digital, then our students have access to the broad range of different products that are available to them that are baked right in, which leads me to the third case that I have here for the reason why we should increase accessibility for all students, but especially those students with disabilities, and the fact that it's no longer a tall task to be able to do so. So to think back in July of 1969, Apollo 11 landed on the moon, and it was monumental for the time. The computer, the Apollo guidance computer that was on the Apollo 11 was the equivalent of a modern simple calculator, not like a graphing calculator or a scientific calculator, but like a modern calculator, the one that you would pick up at the dollar store. Now, to think now, 52 years later, we have devices like Chromebooks at our disposal. And a Chromebook, while it may be a watered-down version of a PC, is nothing short of miraculous. We discredit it too much. We don't give it enough credit. And so if we compare that Apollo guidance computer that took the Apollo 11 to the moon, a Chromebook has it's 100,000 times more processing power, and it has 1 million times the amount of memory, of random access memory, I should say, than what that Apollo guidance computer had in a small little package that's affordable that we can get for every kid. And at this point, after the COVID pause, after everything we've gone through with COVID, are now plentiful. They're all over the place. And so the power that comes into a Chromebook and the accessibility of how we can get them into every kid's hands is just unparalleled at this point. So if we have the power to send a man to the moon with a calculator, then we certainly have the power to give individuals with diverse needs the ability to learn through the use of a Chromebook. Thing is, a great number of the tools that students need are baked right into the devices, and we don't even really have to worry about them. We just have to make sure that the admin console has them enabled. That way kids have access. We teach them how to use them, that they're available, that they're there. At that point, it becomes the way that they learn, the way that they express themselves, the way that they take in information, the way that they complete their work. So those things that are built right in, things like screen magnification, select-to-speech, text-to-speech, speech-to-text, onboard cameras, touchscreens, different color palettes, language translation, and so much more. And they're all right there already. We don't have to do anything to get them there. Are there some extensions and services that you can buy Yeah, but by and large, the computer industry has done a great job of adapting and making sure that accessibility is a huge part of what they do. We just simply need to give them access, though. We need to give kids access to the devices, to digital curriculum, to be able to have access for individuals with diverse learning needs. So when we have the training principles of universal design for learning in mind, we really don't need to change all of our lessons to suit our diverse learners. That's a practice that we've gone into for a long time now. We have our main lesson, a regular lesson, and then we have this adapted lesson that usually we have done by a paraprofessional that's going through and making sure this lesson can be used by a student they're working with. But it shouldn't ever have to be that way to do more work on the lesson. With Udl Principles, we can design lessons that every student has access to, that we don't have to change anything, and that all the diverse learning needs are met through this great design principle. Lessons have to be built intentionally, though, and intentional is definitely the operative word there. So, in closing here, equity and access for diverse learning students those practices are much farther along than what they used to be. They've come a long, long way, but we still do have a long ways to go. But we can do it. We just have to be intentional about it.